Jason, hey man.
Hey Nathan, how's it going?
Good. I'm good. We have like over 1,200 views for yesterday's video. It went like crazy. So keep it up. Thank you for everybody watching this and subscribing and letting people know about it.
Yeah, it really helps get us up to do this every day. We talk about this stuff all the time anyway, but I'm glad to hear that people are enjoying it and following along. So um, let's get into it. Let's talk about we talked a little bit earlier about deadlines and estimates and how they can plague you or they can benefit you or whatever. And you actually brought this topic up in Basecamp this morning. So I'm curious, you want to share some thoughts on what you're thinking about with estimates and deadlines and that sort of thing?
Sure, sure. So I mean, a pain point we have right now like a great recent example. Like we just in Highrise, we just released a feature in the last few weeks called pinning, and it's not earth shattering, it's not mind opening, but it's a helpful little feature. You can pin a note or an email that's in a contact to the top of the page, and I mean I think it makes sense to most people. It's like as you have lots of notes and lots of emails for a contact, there's usually certain bits of information that are maybe more important than others. Like, oh, this one email was about a certain thing, a certain order, or a certain event in their life, and we need to find it really fast. So let's pin it to the top of the case.
Yep.
And it was like people have asked for it. We wanted to do it. It made sense. It didn't seem like we have so many things we've got to do. So it wasn't at like the top of our to-do list to do. But then so we've been exploring some other stuff. So we're disconnecting the as part of moving off of Basecamp. We're going to disconnect this connection that Highrise has to Basecamp Classic. And it was this situation where we're going to do this disconnection, but we don't want people to lose they have notes because of this connection that says like, hey, you have a project that may relate to this deal or whatever over in Basecamp Classic. And we wanted to keep those around. And right now they kind of sit prominently on the page. We wanted to keep that prominent. So we were like, well, we could add pinning, and then that would be an easy way to kind of migrate these notes over to this new pin version. It was like this two-for example of like, whoa, we can get a new feature out. People are going to love pinning. And now this allows us to kind of do something else we want to do in this system to kind of gracefully kind of degrade a feature out that isn't used by many people. But we didn't want to make it totally bad. So we were like, okay, this will take like a few days. It took weeks. Like pinning took a long time. And it's like, if I knew it would have taken this long, we probably wouldn't have done it. We would have come up with some other way, or we would have figured something else out to do with these other things, or we would have just, I don't know, bitten off more of the pain of taking this away. So it's hard. We're having a hard time, I think, with some of these projects. We estimate them as easy, they take forever, and they end up pushing off maybe more important things that we want to do. So it's I don't know, it's a weird challenge that we're in, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to handle it. So yeah, I mean, what's going on over there in this regard?
Same thing. I mean, estimates are hard when you don't dig into the work first, right? You can sort of estimate on the surface, like, well, we can add pinning, so you mark something as pinned and it stays at the top, and we can force that and done, right? You're like,
yeah.
Oh, what else does it touch?
Yeah.
It touches all these other things, and how does it touch these other things? And what happens if you do these other things to this and whatever? So I think the thing, first of all, humans are terrible estimators to begin with, just are. We're overly optimistic. It's probably a good thing for our species, but bad things for projects, technically. We feel like we could do anything, and we can do it by whenever we need to, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I think a key part of it too is just being a little bit more realistic by instead of starting by estimating, start by doing a little bit of work and then estimating. So put a day in, go spelunking, go explore a little bit. What's it going to take after a day? What do we know after a day? I think is a much better way than sitting around coming up with an idea and trying to estimate how long it's going to take. So that's what we've done in the past, especially when we know something might be hairy. We still make the mistake of estimating before we dig in, but if we suspect something's going to be hairy, someone goes off on an expedition and digs in a bit more, and then they come back and go, okay, yeah, this actually touches a lot of stuff. This is going to be a little bit longer than we thought.
That's really good. I like that. We've done this kind of informally. We've gone on these, like, I don't know, we call them like R&D projects or something. And they're not really, we're not like really like you know, R&Ding the next stealth fighter or something, but it's like we'll go in and we'll just fool around. We'll like, you know, hey, what would it take to do this? And we come up with some insights. But this is a much more formal approach you're talking about, and I like it a lot. Like I could see this is even happening right now. Like we're talking about when you create a contact in Highrise, you have to create a contact first, then you can add tags and or add a picture. You can't do it while you're creating a contact, and people rightly so want to do it all at the same time. There's too many steps involved, and so it sounds easy to change, but as my brain starts working on it, it's like, well, I don't know, you know, that's file uploads are pretty hairy, especially with you know, all the different places where files have to get backed up and everything else. But now that I'm thinking about it, like, man, we could, I don't know, we could spend part of a day, you know, spend half a day like spelunking, like you're saying, like let's schedule that in and then come back and we can actually have a decent conversation about where this could fit in.
Sorry.
No, that's a good idea. I like that. We should probably try to kind of get that formal spelunking project more into our flow of talking about this, like you're talking about. I like that.
About that is that you can absolutely estimate how long it takes to spend 8 hours on something. It takes 8 hours. So you can be like, we're going to spend tomorrow 8 hours, whatever it is, digging into this. At the end of the day, let's look at where we're at. We're not trying to solve any problems. We're not trying to fix anything. We're just trying to like get a read of where we're at, what it touches, what it could be, and then we can bring this stuff to the table and go, all right, this is definitely a couple weeks probably, or this is actually easier than we thought, or even better is let's make some trades. Let's put some trades on the table. So this. If we want to do it like this, 10 days. If we want to do it like this, 3 days. Are those extra 7 days worth it? Is there some simpler version of this? But at least now you have a sense of the things it touches. So I think that that's a really valuable thing.
And I like scheduling it in because it's like right now it's like we just sort of like right now it's like we estimate and then it's like, okay, we commit. Like that sounds like a good, easy project. Let's do it. And then while we're doing it, it's like, oh no, it's a little crazier. But because we're already committed to it, we really don't have like a way to like pull the I don't know, the news press or whatever, where you pull the stop. Like there's no like, whoa guys, let's throw this out. Let's not do this right now. I mean, we may have done this in the past, but it's hard to do it when you're just like committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we do. And we don't do it all the time, but when there's something we think might be hairy, we do it. We dig into it a little bit.
Cool. Well, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, cool. I think that's something I would recommend. Related to that is deadlines in general. People tend to hate deadlines. Like, we got this thing coming up, we got to get it done. Ugh, damn headline or damn deadline coming up. There's a lot of anxiety around them and frustration around them, and they're often moved and the whole thing. And I've come to kind of love them actually, which is a change for me. We never really even used to have any deadlines, but we set a deadline about, maybe it was like 6 months ago to launch Basecamp 3 on a day that is coming up soon. And we're going to hit that, period. What's nice about the deadline is the deadline's immovable. You can move other things. You can say what really, like, we can adjust scope a bit. Obviously, like, we've been working on the product for a year plus, so it's damn good in general. And there's some things that we could maybe make better and some experiences we can make better, but we can also limp forward with those on day 1 and then get to them on day 3 after launch or whatever. So, but it does force you to evaluate, think, and it seems to have a magical effect on things getting done. There's just, the closer you get to a deadline, the more stuff actually gets done. It just is that way. And the more decisions you make and the clearer your mind is, and there's anxiety around it too, but a lot of things just come into focus when they have to come into focus. When they don't have to, when they can be blurry, they remain blurry. That's just kind of how things are. We've got this deadline coming up, but there's things you can also do with deadlines, right? So we have a deadline. We are hitting this deadline, but we've adjusted how we're going to hit the deadline. So the original idea was we are going to launch Basecamp 3 publicly on this day to everybody. We've decided what we're going to do is, for the first week, we're going to launch it publicly, but we're going to launch it invite-only publicly. So by that, we mean we're going to start gathering names. We're going to probably get a list of 10, 20, 30,000 people, 40,000, maybe something like that. over the next week or so, whatever it will be. And then we're going to blast out invites. And this is not like a new idea, right? We actually did this back in 2007 or 5 with Backpack when we launched Back. So we've done this many times. It's just we weren't thinking about doing it for Basecamp 3, but we're going to do it. We'll trickle them out, see how things go, see if we missed anything, see if there's any performance issues we just totally missed, and then trickle some more out, a few hundred a day, 1,000 a day, whatever it might be. And then the following week or whenever, we'll open the floodgates. So it's not a beta, it's a launch. You can pay for it. We're standing behind it. It's finished, except it's only going to be available to a smaller number of people at the start, and then we'll open the floodgates wider. So yeah, we have a deadline. We're launching in a day, but we can control the flow of the launch as well. So there's all these other things you can control around a day. If you keep pushing deadlines out, it's very difficult to just finally stick to one. It's very broken windows in that way, that if you miss a deadline, you miss another one, you miss another one, and then you don't do it. So that's our plan. I lost you. I think you're frozen, man. I don't know if I'm frozen. This is slightly awkward now. And people are watching me wonder if you're there.
Oh my God. There you are. Yeah, here I am.
Okay. Wait, you're not moving. You're frozen. There you are.
Okay. You were frozen there. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? I don't know what happened.
You were frozen too. Like, what happened there? But
yes.
Anyway, I don't know what got transmitted and what didn't. But
I heard up to, so like you did this with Backpack. You're going to send out this trickle of invites. You've changed the scope of what you guys are going to launch, basically how you're going to launch this thing to make the deadline.
We've changed the scope of so we're not launching a beta. We're launching a product that we're standing behind, that you can pay for on day one, the whole thing, right? It's a legit thing, except we're controlling the flow of new signups. That's what we've decided to do. So we're a little bit more comfortable in case we missed anything. And then the following week or whenever that will be, we'll open the floodgates all the way. But on that same day that we said we're launching, we are launching. We don't necessarily know who's going to be signing up because it's going to be a randomized invite system. And so when doors are open for business, we're just sort of only letting in a limited number to begin with. So that's kind of a way. You've got different levers. If you push the deadline out, and then push the deadline out some more, and push the deadline out some more, like, it's kind of a broken windows thing. Like, once you push it out a few times, you'll just keep pushing it out. So I think it's kind of better to say, like, line in the sand, deadline. What other levers can we play with to meet that deadline? How can we roll with the deadline in a way that allows us to be in more control of what's going out, and then slowly kind of reveal. So that's the plan. But anyway, it just brings so much clarity to the game, and you start working on things that really matter, and you start finishing up things that matter, and you start really focusing on the things that aren't good, that need to be good, that absolutely must have to be good. So it's a very healthy thing to have.
Yeah. And I think the stress, I mean, deadlines I think are stressful for people, like you've said. I mean, I used to work at a consulting company, always under the gun with a deadline. But I think the reason why it becomes so stressful is because people don't realize that I forget exactly. There's the 3 things that all projects need to have. Like, you can only, there's 3 things in a project. You can only have 2, something like scope, money, or time. I mean, right. You basically, like, one of those has to be flexible. But when you work for some of these projects, it's like they assume none of it's flexible, and you get stuck. Like, it's like, well, and then the only thing that becomes flexible is like the amount of time you spend doing overtime, and then the quality of the project. I mean, it goes to shit. And so it's like, when you start fixing things, but then, giving yourself that release valve of like, look, we can change some things here. We can, remove some features. We can, have some easier wins. We could, do a lot of other things, fit something else in. Like, it relieves that stress a ton. So yeah, I agree with deadlines. It's just, it has to be handled like realistically, like you guys are doing.
Yeah, hopefully that's the plan. But I think it's just good to keep in mind that if you put a stake in the sand, or a line in the sand, or whatever you want to call it, right? There are things that orbit that. And the things that orbit it can be adjusted. But if you keep moving the line, then you don't, like, it's just very easy to keep moving the line and keep moving the line. And once you've gotten used to moving the line, and once the habit is built up that you can keep moving the line, then you don't get to the forced reality of like, we're doing this thing. And when you get to the point of we're doing this thing, that's when things become very clear. Like, we're doing this thing. This is not our release, but like, we're doing this thing. We're launching in 2 weeks. So like, it's got to be good. It's got to work. These things have to be right. And like, it clears a lot of clouds out of the way. But if you know that the line's going to keep moving, then you can be like, well, it needs to be good, but we can do other things for a while because we have more time, and we'll make more time because we'll push this out again. And it's difficult. So yeah. I'm aware of the other. I mean, the downside is like you launch something that isn't good, and you launch something that's broken, and you did it just in the service of a date that you picked out of your ass and threw up there and said like, this is the thing. But I think it's about ultimately being realistic still. But I think that a lot of other things. My point is that a lot of other things can move and change than the date. The date is actually your friend. It's your friend forcing you to be good at a certain point, and you can decide how much you want to be good at and with, versus continuing to push this thing off and off and off. So
even we recognize this. I've done Y Combinator now a couple times, and like the best kind of the best I think kind of aspect of Y Combinator is simply like you're joining a program in which you are going to demo this product that you're making in front of news outlets and investors, whatever, on this demo day. Demo day is like the most useful force that's part of something like a Y Combinator. I mean, it forces you to get something accomplished. All these ideas that you have, they usually, for most of us, like we just leave them kind of like unprioritized. We don't know what we're doing, and we just, we're just full of hope, and everything just keeps going. Like I've worked on products in my past that have just gone on for years, and I'd never release anything. Yeah, deadlines work. Yeah, and they help too. Like they prioritize things, like you're saying. Like that, I'm a big fan of like that Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where most of the stuff we're thinking about probably isn't going to be all that impactful. But like once you start thinking about like what can we get done, what is going to be the most impactful stuff, you can find that 20% that's going to have that like big impact that you can fit in like by the time the deadline arrives. So it's just another, again, like it helps kind of fuel prioritization of what might be the most important stuff, that you're going to deliver anyways.
It really does. It totally does. It is your friend. I've been meaning to write up a post on this, and maybe this will sort of inspire me to do it. But yeah, I mean, to be clear, like it does still create anxiety because like, nothing is ever really the way you exactly want it. Very rarely is that the case. But man, it benefits you in so many other ways that's actually a minor thing. And if you find yourself pulling all-nighters left and right, then like the problem is not the deadline. The problem is your scope. Too much work, too many things you think are absolutely essential, which probably are not. Like that's actually the healthy thing is to move that. So anyway, it's definitely a good topic. Anything else in your mind? What else is going
on? Pricing. So I mean, it's just another aspect of high-rise, right? In pricing. And selling a product and whatever, and high-rise's pricing has been the same for a long time. We've added like a bigger plan that people have been adding contacts and more contacts. We've added like in a giant plan right now that people can get into, and we're tied a little bit until we change things like billing systems and stuff like that. But there's stuff we could do soon. There's stuff we could even do now. We actually did this recently where we were working on the new homepage for High-Rise, the new marketing site. And we actually, for a little while there, we were sending people into, so we have a free plan and we have paid plans, and all the paid plans require a credit card up front. It's still a 30-day trial. You don't get charged for 30 days, but if you stay in it without canceling or changing back to the free plan, you'll be charged. And so we were sending people, we experimented a little bit. I shouldn't say, it wasn't a very scientific experiment. We were just kind of fooling with what would happen if we sent people immediately to the free plan. Like just get them in the free plan, don't ask for a credit card. And of course, signups went, doubled or something because we were just getting more people into the free plan. There was no friction about getting us a credit card. And I took it away right away because we didn't really have any A/B testing in place. We weren't actually measuring, well, are we making more money from this or not? And it freaks me out, rightly so. I mean, especially like everyone should watch like what happened when you guys changed the Basecamp forum. Like go back and watch like an episode or two. I forgot where we mentioned that. I'll mention it in the show notes. But that was
posted. So I don't know if we mentioned it so much. Maybe we did, but we just posted on SVN on our blog.
There's a great post on Signal versus Noise about it. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it freaks me out when we start to talk about pricing. I get nervous that we're not going to test it properly. And it's hard to test this stuff properly. I mean, setting up, split testing a payment form and watching revenue and this cohort generated this much revenue and this cohort generated this much revenue. It's painful, and it's tempting to say, fuck it. Let's just change it. I don't know. Yeah. Like what's going on with pricing with you guys? What kind of?
Well, the thing that's hard to test, because like I have a variety of ideas for pricing. When I say we do, company does. We've always priced with unlimited users. So our prices are like Basecamp's $25, $30, $50, something like that, right? Depending on your plan. And you get unlimited users. We never charge by the user. And this is fairly rare in the industry. Most companies charge per seat. $10 a person, $5 a person, $7 a person, $12 a person, whatever it is, right? You have, $10 a person, you have 10 people using it, it's $100 a month, whatever it is, right? So we're just like, nope, we don't want to charge by person. We're just going to charge all inclusive, flat fee, no matter how many people use it, right? And we've done this forever, and it becomes gospel. And sometimes I wonder if we're telling ourselves a story rather than like the actual real story is people are totally comfortable paying per user, and maybe we can increase our average ticket from, I'm making up round numbers here just for the sake of argument, from $50 to $100 because we're charging per user. I don't know, maybe we could, right? What's interesting, what's difficult about that is that it's different than just like changing numbers on plans. Like, well, people, if it's 29 versus 34, okay, per month, that's one thing. But now like charging per user is an entirely different model. Like when you add people, you have to remind, like if you add people to Basecamp, you have to like now explain that like each time you add someone, it's an extra $10 a month or something. And so how prominent do you make that? And then like you change the invoice, do you invoice them now? Like there's just more to it than just changing numbers, right? It's like you're changing the model. And when you change the model, it's just more complicated. And then you've got a marketing site where it's like, which one are we pitching? So if we pitch both at the same time, right, we got to track people. It's all doable. It just becomes more work. And then you could say, well, what if we just charge by the project? What if people just say, hey, I got a gig for a client. I'm doing a client project, $50 one time, use it forever, 100 years, whatever, it doesn't matter. Got another project, buy another project, whatever it is. Like that's a whole nother model, which requires like fundamental rewiring of things. And that's where it becomes really challenging. I think playing with numbers without changing the underlying fundamental model and economics is relatively easy. But when you start dealing with fundamental model shifts, it becomes more complicated, and it also becomes complicated for the whole company. So now support has to know who they're talking to, what plan, what model they're seeing. Right. And if a customer's like, well, wait, my friend isn't doing this and I've got this, like, how do you deal with that? And then do you have to be able to say like, well, what would you prefer? And we can move you to that model. So now you got to have an admin. Like there's all these things you got to start to do. So that's sort of the thing that, like, in my mind, I just want to snap my fingers and be like, I've got 12, I actually have like 9 ideas for pricing. Like I actually have 9 ideas. And one of the crazy ideas I have is that if you pay for Basecamp for 2 years, you get it for free for life. Basically, the idea is like, it's kind of like a rent to own. You pay monthly for 2 years, and once you've earned out 2 years, free. You own it now. Like how cool is it to own a piece of SaaS software? Like, I don't know, that's maybe nuts. I don't know. It would take 2 years to find out if that matters. Like, I'd like to test that. There's a bunch of things I'd like to play with. And anyway, but it becomes difficult, and some of these cohorts or some of these timeframes are very long. And that's the real challenge for me. This is why I've always loved retail stores. I've always wanted to have a retail store where I can just be like, I can just put like a sandwich board outside and be like 10% off and just see if more people come in the store that day. You know, like that's pretty, I can just have a clicker. I can stand at the front and just click and know. Like I can see, you know, I can look at my tally at the end of the day. I can look at my receipts and go, did we make more or less? Like I can look, it's like so easy. I can be like, buy 2 of these jars of pickles and get 1 free and see if that moves the needle on pickles. Like, right. When you can just use your brain to do those things and just kind of use primitive tools to track it, it's so easy to test things. With our software, with software in general, and you've got like complicated models and all sorts of dependencies, it becomes really difficult to track that. And these things happen over time. It's not just as simple necessarily as like counting up pickle jars sold at the end of the day. Because when someone buys pickles, they buy pickles. When someone buys Basecamp, like they may try it for 30 days, they may cancel on day 29. I can't book that sale for 30, all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, it's
anyway,
it is. It's crazy, and you're right about the stories we tell ourselves. Like it's hard.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
It's hard. Like you don't. When I was doing Inkling, like we used to come up with these same type of things, like let's charge per user, let's charge per market. And it was like, man, but you're causing all this friction to actually use the system. Like we want people to be making more of these things. Like you're saying, like you want, like if you made it per project, you'd be putting friction on creating a project, and people get the most use out of Basecamp when they're like making lots of projects. And it's like, they're going to not want to do the thing that the thing is so good at when there's like a price attached to it. At least that's how I feel too when I'm priced with some of these things. So it's tough. I don't have an answer. I will try and test some things, and hopefully we can share some of the stuff we learned too. But it is a little scary.
It's hard. It's just flat out hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that have helped me, I don't know if this, one of the things that I've talked about a lot is like, I actually pay for a Highrise account. There's a Highrise account that I have right now that isn't comped. And so I get billed. My credit card gets billed every month. So I get to see what the email looks like, when I'm getting charged. And it's more meaningful that way. Like I get to look at my credit card statement and I see how much I have to pay for this Highrise account. And it's like, I get to compare it then with like the other stuff I'm paying for and what I'm budgeting, I'm spending money on. And, I think a lot of us who like use and make our own products, like we're very tempted to comp ourselves. And it's almost silly to keep paying for it, right? Because it's like I pay for it, but then I don't go get reimbursed, but it's like the money just kind of cycles through the system. Like I pay myself, I pay for the product that pays me. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's something more meaningful about like actually putting your own credit card statement, getting the same, emails that your customers are getting. And that's helped me make some pricing decisions. Like, like in the past, I've like looked at like, okay, I'm paying this much and I'm paying this much for these many contacts, these many users, these many whatever. And for some reason, because I'm paying for it, it's coming out of my bank account. It feels different than if it were just comped and I'm just interviewing other people about how they feel about pricing. I don't know if that helps. I don't know.
It does. I got the same thing going. So I see that too. There's nothing like it when it comes out of your own bank account and you get it on your own statement and you see it. Which is why I always am skeptical, although clearly a lot of companies make this work about the per user pricing. When companies are growing rapidly and they add a bunch of people, it's like when I get my electric bill and all of a sudden one month it's like an extra $120 compared to the previous month. I'm like, whoa, what happened? How'd that happen? And I'm like, did we run the air more? Did we leave the lights on? Like, what happened? I guess maybe it is different in a company if you know that you're getting billed more if you add people, or maybe some accounting departments just simply don't care. I don't really know how it all goes down, but there's so much psychology in pricing that it's really challenging. But I think there's also something to be said for about you were saying before about like pricing it around aligning it with the motivation. So if we charge by the project and Basecamp's about making projects, like are we slowing usage? Or is there another way to look at it, which is like is actually really nice. Is it? And the question is, I don't know. Yeah. Is it really nicely aligned with the actual pattern, which is, hey, a client just hired me. They're paying me $28,000 to do this project. Right. I'm happy. Awesome. I'll spend $50 right now to get this going in Basecamp. Like maybe it's more like, it's like you made money. We get a little tiny cut to help you out. Like maybe that's actually better aligned. Than paying on a monthly basis if you have nothing going on.
Right.
Like we see stuff happen with Basecamp where people are like, I don't have any projects going on right now, so they cancel or they pause their account. And maybe that's kind of a crappy feeling. So I don't know. It's interesting how it all works out. There's a lot of things you can do to learn more about it, but it is just hard. I wish it was just maybe this is just a matter of making the commitment to build a system that is highly flexible in terms of being able to test pricing. not just numbers, but models, radically different models. Part of this, though, the other challenge, of course, is that it is tied to your marketing. So if we're out there shouting, if I'm going speaking to 3,000 people at a conference about how we don't charge per user, and then we're doing an A/B test where we're charging per user on one of those tests, it's like what? How can I say that and then test that? So it's complicated when you really think it all through. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a good topic, though, to keep talking about.
Something that dawned on me is like you could kind of like what you're doing with some of the Medium writing I see going on over there. Like you could this is ridiculous. This isn't probably a good idea. You could like white label Basecamp, create another product that you don't tell anybody about called whatever, Turtle Camp, and Turtle Camp has a different model, and you like run it off of some different servers or something, and like maybe you even, I don't know, decide to shut it down and you migrate users over to Basecamp or something. I don't know, but it would be interesting an experiment if you like told no one about Turtle Camp, and ran some different.
Certain brands do this. I know Nike, from what I understand, might be wrong about this, but Nike's opened stores. This is what I've heard. Again, I don't know if this is true, but they've opened like sneaker stores, even carrying other companies' brands. But like these sort of like cool undercover shoe stores. Again, I don't know if this is true, so someone can probably speak up and tell me, or maybe no one knows and it's really secret. But I just heard about this once, and they're just kind of curious to see what other models work and what people do when they buy. Like you go to Nike Town, all you can buy is Nikes. But wouldn't it be interesting if Nike could see people shopping for New Balance? So like how or Asics, like, or Adidas. What does that look like? And so maybe my hunch is that Nike has some of these stores around. There's like a whole breed of like really kind of cool sneaker shops, and I'm just wondering if Nike's behind some of them quietly, so they can kind of get a sense of other things and what's going on. That's not necessarily a pricing thing, but it is like a competitive analysis sort of thing, and see how people shop for other brands.
That's
anyway,
yeah,
it's kind of neat. The hard part, of course, with like doing it the way you just pitched is that like the new product, the fake white label product, has to like be promoted. Who's going to talk about it? How people can find out about it? But you could definitely do that if you put your mind to it. I'm sure you can make that work. So
that's interesting.
We're out of time.
We are. All right, dude. Good chat.
Yeah, we will talk tomorrow, same time.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a button probably like right over there.
Secret. I did like this, and that seemed to do it. So yeah, please follow us on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please click the button. We had 575 subscribers at the beginning of the show. Let's hit 600 this show. Let's hit 650 maybe if we can, or 700 even. Tell people about this. Spread the word everywhere you can. And if you find this valuable, I'm sure other people will too. So get the word out and give us a hand with that. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.
Later.